Hi everyone, my name is Iben, and with the year nearing its end and Planet Zoo 2 on the horizon, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at all the projects that I did in the past few years in this game and give you a look behind the scenes and show you a few things that never made it into an actual series or tell you why certain projects just stopped after a while. Starting off with Hallet Park Zoo, and of all the zoos that I've abandoned, I think this is the one that I feel the most sad about because I've always really loved how it looked. I think that the foliage combination really worked well. I think the overall color choices also just spoke to me on a level that other zoos never really did. But I think the major thing that really clicked for me is the big savanna view. That was really what solidified the project for me, but essentially also became the part of the project that made me quit it, which is quite weird to say. Because this view right here is so good, and I essentially realized that I could never build something in this park that was as good as this view. The sloping safari view consisting of 3 different exhibits with a safari village right at the back and all the cool things that come with that. I simply never felt like I was able to make something that was as good as this and that could really be translated to other areas in the park, and that was a big bummer. I peaked too early with this zoo. This was the one thing that I loved but also hated about the zoo. I simply could not think of something that would work in other areas of the zoo. I tried to make a big jungle area with the African elephant, but it never really clicked. Having said that, I still love this zoo. This really was where I started experimenting with more things than I usually did, and this really drove me towards the building style that I have today. I am still in love with this little African village and what it represents, and I hope that once Planet Zoo 2 arrives, I will be able to make things like this again, because it really, really is one of the more beautiful things that I've made in this game. I still really love all the views that you can achieve here in this zoo, especially this flamingo exhibit or the exhibit with the African wild dogs right over here. These exhibits just really did it for me. I really loved how they looked. I loved how you didn't get to see the barrier over here. It just all worked. And again, I peaked with this first area. This is where I really made something that I really, really loved. And when I moved on to the second section, the Asia section, that's where things really went downhill. But for now, let's just take one more look at the big safari exhibit, which is just look at it. These are 3 individual exhibits, but from this perspective, it all looks like one big exhibit, and I still adore this area of the zoo. This is where I really peaked in the zoo, and unfortunately I was never able to reach this again. Because going into the Asia area, something just wasn't right for me. I still really like the temple ruin vibes that I've created here, and I still enjoy it when I walk through this area, but again, I wasn't able to capture the same idea that I had with the safari exhibit, and that kind of did it for me. It stopped me from building more in the zoo, whilst I did kind of achieve another of these layered view exhibits. I focused too much on trying to make this the big thing of the zoo, which results in me just not liking it anymore. Everything had to be this kind of exhibit style, and once you try to do that for everything, it just falls apart really quickly. It made it so that I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and once I no longer enjoy a zoo that I'm working on, then I quickly lose all steam and I just can't work on it anymore. And that's kind of a shame, because there were some really cool aspects in here. I still really like the fountain over here that has a water feeder in here as well, which makes it so that the animals actually come here and drink from the water. I still love the tower in the back. I still love how it becomes a visual point in a lot of the exhibits. But yeah, it never really captured my attention again. I really didn't, I wasn't convinced by this area, and at that point I just didn't feel like completely tearing this down and trying to build something new, because honestly it just didn't feel right. I did, however, try to move on to another section before I gave up on the zoo, and yeah, it's clear that I didn't get really far. I wanted to make a typical Pacific style exhibit over here, and yeah, it just never worked out. I struggled with the pieces, I struggled with the theme. I am not that good at it. Wyatt is an incredible artist when it comes to that kind of theme. I am just not good at it. And this was another failure to me, and it was just a failure too much for me to continue with this zoo. And that's essentially where Hallet Park Zoo ended. It wasn't me being too ambitious, but I kind of found something that I wanted to replicate throughout the entire zoo, and it just didn't work. And once I realized that I had peaked with this section of the zoo, I simply really couldn't continue anymore. So that's why Hallet Park Zoo will never get finished, but I'm still happy with what I've built, and there's parts of this specific safari village that I'm going to try to reuse in the Zoo of Ghent. Wild World San Diego was a park that was really inspired by both SeaWorld San Diego and the park that Remnant and Jash are working on, or at least were working on. I really wanted to see what I could do if I took a SeaWorld, and instead of it just being a typical SeaWorld, I thought, what happens if a SeaWorld decides to focus more on animals than on attractions like they do in real life? What would that look like? So I tried my best, and I took a lot of inspiration from all kinds of SeaWorlds all over the world, and ended up with this. This is the first step. And I actually really enjoyed what I was making here. It does look quite good. It has this really cool, nice touch pool that I really liked. It's inspired by one of the sea lives. I don't remember which one from the top of my head. But yeah, it looked quite nice, and I really liked the vibe that I had going on, just with all the plants, the foliage, just how everything looked. And I also started working on this gift shop, which had a very cool little treasure chest design, which is why it was called Treasure Cove. And yeah, overall, I was very happy with how everything looked. I really liked how this gift shop had a very organic flow. There were no sharp corners. Everything just was very smooth. I really liked this clothing section here in the back and the fitting room that I made over here. And yeah, I was actually a big fan of where this was going. As I said, I wanted this zoo to be much more than just a SeaWorld. I wanted this to be an animal world where they stopped focusing on rides and attractions and started focusing on more animals. So this section was based on Busch Gardens Tampa, and I really liked the vibrant colors of it all, which led me to creating this area. And again, I still like how this looks. It's really nice. I really like the color choices. I really love the piece choices. This cooling fan is still a really cool design. And I really liked what I had going on over here, which was going to be a giraffe exhibit, which you could be able to see from all the way back down. But as you can see, I never got really far with this project. It was just too ambitious of a project to do in Planet Zoo 1, because I would have to use so many different mods to just get the marine animals in, and I really wasn't happy with the idea of just having aquariums that didn't look good, that didn't work the way that I wanted it to do. So I quickly abandoned this project. I still like what I've made, and I hope to be able to make something like this in the future, but for now it's just too ambitious and I don't want to work on it anymore. Everton Zoo is another zoo that I started but never finished. This is actually, I believe, the third or even fourth version of the zoo, and there was something here that I really liked. I really enjoyed the almost garden-like feeling that this entrance area had that I simply didn't have in other zoos. And it's still one of those things that I really like and do want to continue into other projects in the future, especially in Planet Zoo 2. But there was something about it that wasn't working. Once again, I was thwarted by my own goals. I wanted to create a zoo that had very unique areas, very unique takes on common zoo areas, and that resulted in me just being pressured. I really liked this Congo area, and once I had that in mind, I continued and moved on to the Australia area. And I think this is where things really went wrong. I still really enjoy the look of Journey to the Billabong, but I already started to feel the pressure of just trying to figure out new ways of showcasing these animals, of creating these areas where you see animals in ways that you haven't seen in other zoos, and it put way too much pressure on myself to find really creative and really unique ways of building a zoo, which again took me out of it and took the fun away from me, which is something that I realized quite quickly when I started thinking about all the zoos that I've abandoned in these past few years. Because I really did try. I actually started working on another area, and I've had like 15 different ideas before I landed on something that was going to be inspired by the Pacific Northwest. And again, I ran into issues. Again, I didn't feel happy with what I was making. It just didn't feel right. And quickly after I built this area, which was supposed to have a picnic area and a big aviary for bald eagles, I decided to abandon Everton Zoo. It just didn't work. And all in all, it's been a bit of a shame that it didn't work. I really liked where it was going. I really liked the garden feel that I achieved here at the start of the zoo. And again, it's something that I really hope to be able to reintroduce in future projects, especially with the project that I have in mind for Planet Zoo 2. I really wanted to create a fancy restaurant here overlooking the water. I wanted to create a very intricate Congo area with lots of animals from the Congo, and I wanted to display them in unique ways, but again, just felt like I wasn't doing a great job at what I set out as a goal for myself. And this was one of the projects that really kind of broke me. I was at a point where I thought, like, am I even able to finish projects in Planet Zoo? I knew I did it for Koali, but I didn't feel like I was going to be able to do it for another project. And that really took me a while to get around and figure out why things kept going the way they were going. Now, this zoo never really got a real name. I think for a while I called it Gardens of Atlas because I genuinely like that name, but it never really fit the project. The project was supposed to be my take on a Libema zoo, so more kind of what would happen if they had a chance to build a zoo completely from scratch, and it would be bigger than your traditional Overloon or Dierenrijk, which is called Eindhoven Zoo right now, and be more the size of a Beekse-Berghen. That was my idea, because for those who don't know, Libema is the company behind the Beekse-Berghen, and my initial idea was to have this 8-like shape for the entrance with a restaurant on this side that you could visit at night, even when the zoo was closed, and that when you sit here at the terrace, you would get a view of the white-ruffed lemurs. And I'm still a big fan of what this ended up looking like. The climbing frames work really well, and I really liked the detail over here where you have these planks holding the ground from the water. I was very happy with this backstage as well. I loved how themed it was on this side, but if we go through this area, then you'll notice that the backside, the theming just stops and it's your typical run-of-the-mill backstage building. I also really like this tap over here, and the covering that I made for it. It's a small little detail, but I really liked it. And over here I made these huge bags that had gravel in them, so that everywhere where the gravel is used, they could refill it. Yeah, really still very happy with what this looked like, and you can get really cool views throughout this entire zoo, even from the backstage perspective. I said the climbing worked well, and now all of a sudden this rough lemur just jumped all over the place. Planet Zoo and your climbing. Never, I would say never change, but please do change. And I think this was the first time where I started using animals like the ducks as a flavor animal in these kinds of exhibits. I really like them when they are in the moats and in the lakes and water parts of larger exhibits. If you'd come through the entrance, then this is where you would start with a exhibit for the goats, with a lot of other exhibits in the back. And the idea of having these multi-layered views again really came to mind for me, and it's something that I really enjoy in zoos, which is why I use it so often. And I've always loved this. This looks as if you're in a forest and that the lemurs are just running around in the forest with you, whilst in fact they are much separated from you by moats and all kinds of fences. Now, this Madagascar area was honestly one of my favorite areas that I made for this zoo. It just worked really well, and I built this after my visit to Apenheul, in which, you can just walk around with a bunch of monkeys and a bunch of lemurs and apes. And it's, the vibe that was there in that park really defined this area, and I still really like it. The climbing it really works well in here. They spend so much time climbing in this area. It's absolutely insane. Whenever people say that the animals don't climb much, I'm always like, the lemurs really do. And I think as long as there are enough paths that they can climb on, and if they are connected and they don't have dead ends, then I think they climb a lot. But we have a sign with all the lemurs from stolen directly from the Beekse-Berghen. And we have this little village area again, and this is also something that I took from the Beekse-Berghen build from Goron. I just replaced the pump here with the new one from the Barnyard Animal Pack. And this village, yeah, I really like how it looked. I like the slats where the zookeepers could put these little plates where animals could eat from. But what I really enjoyed was using these grunge pieces over here in combination with the arbor wood set. You can really create some very old looking wood with that, and especially if you just like make sure that you get things like this right, then it's really cool. One of the things that I love the most about this area is I was able to sneak in a sleeping platform over here, and they spend so much time sleeping here in the sun, which really is really nice. And again, is something that I want to keep for if I ever rebuild this in Planet Zoo 2, or if I reuse this for the Zoo of Ghent, then I'm really gonna keep that because it looks really cool. And I also really like this phone. It's the same thing in Overloon, which is a Libema zoo, where they have this, and if you answer the phone, they talk about selling wildlife. So that's really cool. A cool story interaction, of course. Selling wildlife isn't cool for the record, but the storytelling that goes on in that place is really nice. And this was also based on a combination of things that I saw in that Overloon exhibit with the rhino car in Beekse Bergen. So I really like that idea. I certainly enjoyed this part. And there is a guests or a education station underneath here, so people would actually walk up to the radio and interact with it, which I really liked. And I like the little detail of the blocks keeping the vehicle right over here. Yeah, it's not that incredible, but I was very pleased with what I made here, and I think I'm going to reuse some of the elements here for the Zoo of Ghent, most likely. Moving on, we have the giraffe exhibit, and this was partly inspired by the Blijdorp exhibit. I really liked how there was a river splitting the exhibit, and I made it a bit more intricate than the one in Blijdorp. But of course, this is the giraffe stall inspired by the one in Blijdorp. However, it isn't big enough, and once we'll get closer to it, you'll notice that it doesn't really work for giraffes. But yeah, I still really like how it looks, and again, I might reuse it for the Zoo of Ghent. I really like this enrichment item, because this was in the time that Goron discovered that if you turned a enrichment item or a feeder upside down, the animal would still perform the animation regularly. So you could just turn them upside down and have animals come in here and use this feeder. I'll see if I can get some footage of the giraffe using it later on through the magic of editing. But yeah, really like this. I like the vibe of it, and this one was one of the first times where I made a grassland exhibit that felt right to me. It didn't feel boring, and the idea would still be to have, like, again, a lot of far sights. So the idea would be that there would be a layered view here as well with elephants or something like that, or cheetahs and lions. Layered views all the way, because that's one of the big strengths of the Beekse Bergen and of the Libema zoos, which I really enjoy. Next to it was my attempt at a white rhino exhibit, and that's where it kind of stopped. I felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again, and then I got bored, and that is what happens a lot with with my zoos. If I do the same thing too often, I get bored, and that's what happened here. Inside of the onion building, as they call it in Blijdorp, this you can really see that this building is way too small, and it really doesn't work for giraffes. It really needs to be bigger, and again, the struggle with this part of the zoo was also one of the things that just made me... I was really happy with it visually, and then I realized that it didn't work, and I was like, I don't want to work on this anymore. Sometimes when you run into multiple issues with a zoo when you're working on something and multiple things aren't working out, then you lose steam on these projects, and that's what happened here. This wasn't a case where I was too ambitious or anything. It was just that too many things in a row failed, and it wasn't working for me. And yeah, that's what kind of killed this zoo. Maybe I'm too much of a perfectionist and maybe I'm really harsh on myself sometimes, but if things don't work out for me, and if they don't work out for me quite often, especially if I'm trying a few new things that I haven't done before, then I end up losing interest. And this time around it wasn't because I was too ambitious. It was simply I didn't like where it was going because things didn't work out the way that I wanted to. And it's a lesson that I'll have to learn for zoos in the future, that I have to be able to let things go. I have to be able to make mistakes and get rid of them and redo sections even if I worked really hard on the section. And I think that's one of the lessons that I've already applied to the Zoo of Ghent. I redid the boat area multiple times, and I had to, and I was very happy with the end results. And instead of letting it stop me, I decided to just continue. And sometimes that works. And I'm glad that I did, because as much as I think that this zoo had some potential and that there was cool stuff to be done here, it left a sour taste in my mouth and I couldn't continue. But there are still things in here that I will most certainly reuse for the Zoo of Ghent, and I'm looking forward to applying some of the lessons that I've learned here to the Zoo of Ghent and to my future projects. Now, I know I've teased you long enough. You want to see this. This is a thing that I showed at the start of the video, and this is the Wild. This was my big giant project that I wanted to do in Planet Zoo, and it was my take on Disney's Animal Kingdom. I am absolutely obsessed with the park. I've bought books, I've seen every form of documentary on this zoo, and I really wanted to recreate the feeling of this park, this zoo, in Planet Zoo. Now, the problem with that is that the scale of such a project is immense, and it is way too big to do this in Planet Zoo. And it took me a really long time to realize this, that you can't do a Animal Kingdom the way Joe Rohde did it in Planet Zoo. You just can't. You have to make sacrifices, and I wasn't willing to do so, which meant that this project was something that I worked on for, I think, 2 to 3 years, and in the end I abandoned it because I never got it right. But I do want to show you guys a few things from this project, and this was one of the first things that I've built. This was the start to the Africa area, and it included this Mealy's Kopje Coffee coffee shop and bakery, and I've always really loved the decal work here on this building, and especially on this tower over here. It has so many decal pieces. It has grunge pieces, it has the crack pieces, it has moss pieces, all kinds of different stuff to get the result that you see right here. And I'm still very proud of the work that I've done here. I really enjoy what I made, and I'm very happy with everything that you can see right now. Now, one thing you need to know about this project is that the Wild was supposed to consist of 4 lands. You had the East, which was of course based on Asia. You had the West, that was based on Mesoamerica. You had the North, which was based on North America. and you had the south based on Africa, and every area would get a single animal that portrays that area. In the north, that was supposed to be the polar bear, but the secondary animal for that area would be the moose, and this was a proof of concept that I did. The idea was that you would walk on a road and that you couldn't continue anymore and that you were forced to take another way, but the moose would be right there crossing behind this fallen log. And if we jump over this log, you can actually see that there is a moat here that would prevent the moose from jumping over and coming to this side. Of course, this was a test. If I actually made this, I would have made it a sloping moat. But the idea was very simple. You would not be able to go through this area, and instead you would go through a set of mines, and then you would have a mine roller coaster and everything that comes along with that. I really liked the colors of the rocks here. It really gives that temperate rainforest vibe that I really wanted to achieve, and I think that I might use it for the Zoo of Ghent one day, but I'm not entirely sure. I might just upload this to the workshop and let other people do some cool stuff with that. I think it would be a waste to just leave these rocks here in this massive junkyard of assets. Because a massive junkyard of assets is really what this park is right now. It's just me building all kinds of stuff that I was going to use for the park, and I tried to focus on getting a separate style, a very distinct style for every single individual section, and this was going to be the style for the Asia section, with the langur being the main focus animal. This is obviously very inspired on Animal Kingdom. The climbing structures right here for the siamang and the gibbon are almost a complete copy of what you see in Animal Kingdom, which I really like. And I always liked that this was actually functional, that the gibbons and the siamang would not only climb on it, but also hang from it and do all kinds of really cool stuff. Like the one sitting over there that just looks really, really cool. However, I knew that the size of this was a bit wrong. I would have to make this a lot smaller for it to be more accurate, but again, still really loved everything that you see here. Continuing on, one of the main things that I made here were these langur statues, which I I really like. It uses the meerkat statue, and it's yeah, it just works. On top of that, I also wanted to make a bunch of murals, and here I used another meerkat statue for these intricate carvings, and again, it actually does look like a langur, which again, I really like. And maybe this is also something that I'll upload to the workshop so that these things don't get lost, and that these can actually end up being used in a park somewhere. It would be a shame if it would just sit here in the asset junkyard. Continuing on, I tried many different things. This was before we got certain pieces to get these kind of flower arrangements. I used the knots. Long before we got all the cool pieces from the the tropical pack, I already tried to make a tree like this, which we also have in Animal Kingdom, and I really, really liked how it looked. One thing I do want to highlight is this sign, Odati. You probably saw this sign in the Zoo of Ghent if you are watching that series, because I do try to reuse some things from this junkyard, so that again it doesn't end up being just a bunch of blueprints that never see the light of day. This was one really cool blueprint that I do want to show. It's based on, I believe, a mechanism in Overloon, and I did use the font piece tiger from Goron, but if you take this and move it that way, the tiger actually becomes white, and it's really fun. One of the major problems that I had with this zoo was trying to figure out an entrance area that I actually liked. I tried a million different things, and as you can see, I even took the Koali entrance area and tried to make a bunch of buildings myself that actually looked interesting enough, but again, nothing really caught my eye. Nothing really just clicked for me like I wanted it to. But there's still some cool buildings over here. Another classic inspired Animal Kingdom building is this one. You'll recognize it instantly. I think it's the Pizzafari building, and yeah, it's a classic one, and I did try to bring this into my project as well. And to show you that I really did experiment with a lot of different things when it comes to the entrance, this was one of the possible entrance designs. I really like how it looked, and I really think this could work for a zoo one day, but it wasn't enough, and I didn't know how to continue from this area onwards. I, again, really still like it, and I think the waterfalls especially look really good in the kind of artificial way that I wanted to achieve. This isn't a real waterfall, but at the same time it looks like the fake waterfalls that you would see in a park or in a zoo. And I really like the way that this archway does draw you towards the big tree of life, which I went back and forth on. I wanted it and I didn't want it because I didn't want to have it look too much like the actual Disney's Animal Kingdom. But yeah, this was in the cards at one point, but as you know now, I never really finished this area. And I think that this is the final thing that I've ever made for the wild, when I was still really considering finishing this project. I think this is the last thing that I did, and I did this quite soon after my trip to Animal Kingdom. And you can really tell that because this is really heavily inspired by what the African area in Animal Kingdom looks like. The Tusker House restaurant is there. There is actually this little seating area in Animal Kingdom that is hidden away, and where you can have tea and where you can have lunch. So this is pretty accurate to what the real thing looks like. I mean, pretty accurate in vibe and in the feeling that you get when you walk through it. It's not exactly the same. But yeah, I really liked this building. And when I zoom out and go over this blueprint junkyard, it might not seem like much. There is not that much in here. And the reason for that is because the Wild was a project that I put so much time in planning wise. I spent so much time figuring out lore, figuring out attractions, figuring out which exhibit would have to be where, what kinds of habitats I would want, everything and much more. I spent so much time planning this zoo that I lost all the fun of building a zoo. And I guess that brings me to the Zoo of Ghent, the project that I'm working on today, and that I really want to finish before the end of this game. I really want this park to be complete before I go to Planet Zoo 2. If I don't end up finishing it before Planet Zoo 2, that would be a shame. I'm not going to stop myself from playing the sequel if this park isn't finished. But I really do hope that I get to finish it before that game gets released. And I do want to repeat the main 3 takeaways that I took from all the projects that I've abandoned in these past few years. I feel like I am a broken record at this point because I've repeated the same thing over and over again. But These are 3 lessons that I need to take at heart and I need to remind myself of enough times. So this is why this video exists, so that I get reminded of the fact that I had these lessons and that I should take these to heart. I think the main first lesson is that ambition is good, but you can be way too ambitious. I will try to avoid going for super master planned parks, because then I spend so much time planning everything and not building stuff. And if I over master plan it, then all the fun of it actually goes away. Then it becomes a chore to actually build the things that you have in mind, instead of just building something and discovering where it goes to. The second lesson that I've learned out of this is just going easy on myself. Instead of forcing myself to build to this very unrealistic standard of building backstages for everything and making sure that everything is perfect, I want to give myself some more room to just build whatever I want to build. And if I don't feel like building a backstage, then that's fine, and I can just build whatever I want to build and make the backstage implied. I don't have to be that harsh on myself. I don't have to be this perfectionistic sometimes. I think that I need to let myself let go of things. And that's a very hard thing to do, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to be great at it, but I'm going to try, and I've really been trying here in the Zoo of Ghent. I've really tried to let go of being a perfectionist and really try to just build whatever I want to build. And if something isn't looking good and if something isn't working out, then I just get rid of it and I'll start working on something else in the meantime. And it works. It gives me the peace of mind that I need, and I'm really happy with the results so far, and I'm going to try to keep applying this way of working to this park, and hopefully this means that it will get finished one day. And finally, as I said earlier on, I need to kill my own ambition sometimes. I need to tone it down and not go for the biggest, craziest projects anymore. If something does feel like it's too difficult to do, if something is so incredible and so amazing in my head and every time I try to build it, it doesn't work out, then the project is simply too big and then I need to scale it down. And I want to thank Just Goron for helping me scale things down in the Zoo of Ghent. I really need that. I really need someone who is willing to say, hey, even scale it down. It's fine. It doesn't have to be massive. Don't make this zoo too big. Keep it the way it is. And with that, I want to end this video and thank you all so much for watching it. I hope you liked what you saw. I hope you're not too sad about all the projects that didn't end up getting finished. I promise I'll try to do better with the new game. I really hope that I can stick to a single project for a longer time. But yeah, I'm really happy with where the Zoo of Ghent is going, and I really hope you like it too. Please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, do everything you have to do. I know every YouTuber says this, but it really does help, and I'm glad that a lot of people seem to like what I've been doing lately, and it really means so much more to me than I want to admit sometimes. But you guys are all really amazing, and thank you for being with me throughout all these years of Planet Zoo, and I'm really looking forward to what we'll achieve in Planet Zoo 2. Thank you. Goodbye.